Today at the Krabby Coffee Shop, Amy has decided to grace us with her presence. Jenny Hubbard is loitering here. Oh, and I just realized I have an emergency I got to deal with. I'll talk to you next week. See ya. I'm only happy when you shake your head and go,
what? A girl takes a week off, and I get crap from you. Well, I took a vacation for the first time in like a year, Kenny.
You forced me out. This is about me. You forced me out of my protective bubble.
Okay.
And I've been doing this since I was 22 years old. I haven't bothered to do the math on that. Last week was the first time that I have in my entire career hosted something all by myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And thankfully, it was Joe Schmidt, and he knows how to do the job, so it was really easy.
That's an interesting thing. I've never even contemplated the fact that you would never have done that.
Yeah, never. It's never been my desire to be a standalone host. I don't want to do that.
And you didn't like it?
It was all right. I don't want to do it again.
Okay.
And there's something we need to get to in the future. Not today. We don't have the time. But I'm now feuding with the entire internet, and I want to bring the internet down, the whole thing down.
You want to shut it off?
I am sick of the way social controls the narrative. It gives the voiceless a voice that they don't deserve. Complete morons and social deviants get to spew BS. It controls and affects the way we do business, and businesses actually spend more time putting their information on Facebook than they do on their webs. I've got a long 2-hour diatribe planned, but we don't have time for it. But I want you to keep that in mind going forward.
I agree, by the way.
Good.
If I could pull the plug on it today, I would do it.
Amy, we have to realize, especially in my case, that means the end of my job.
Oh.
Because I do have a job on the internet.
Well, that complicates things.
More importantly than all of that nonsense,
where was I?
Yeah, well, I'm not buying.
I mean, seriously, a girl leaves for 5 days. I was gone for 5 days.
Canada? I'm thinking you sat in a county jail somewhere in southern Minnesota. You served some time. Where were you?
Really? Do we even know each other at all?
What were you doing?
County jail's your gig, not my gig. I was in Vancouver. My niece graduated from art school, Emily Carr University in Vancouver.
Oh.
So we went to Vancouver, which is a beautiful, beautiful city. I don't know if you've ever been.
No.
They do a lot of TV and movie production there because they've got, like, one side of the city has mountains, one side of the city has water. It's beautiful. But here's what happened. I'm so frustrated by this, and I'm frustrated with myself. Because I don't know how to make this stop happening. Okay? I don't. I try so hard. I try so hard.
Did you get in the way of yourself again?
Yes. Okay, so there's so much more to the story, but it doesn't really matter. There's only one piece of this story that matters, okay?
Okay, all right.
So I am supposed to get up and go to a flight that leaves at noon. Not a big deal, okay?
Yeah.
I live in Stillwater. Our guest that we'll be talking to shortly, Ginny, lives on that east side of town. Not a big whoop. It's like 20, 25-minute drive to the airport.
I remember texting you before all of this, and I think there were some traffic issues.
There were. Instead of it taking about 40 minutes to drop my dog off at daycare, overnight care, whatever, it took an hour and 20 minutes. So I had to go back when I was on the road, drop the dog back off at home, and just go straight to the airport. Okay. So that was a whole mess on into and onto itself. So I'm flustered, I'm sweating, I'm like, just beyond. So but then I'm on my way and I'm like, actually, I'm like 20 minutes earlier than I would have been. I'm golden. I'm great. But Kenny, this happens to me every time I do anything, but especially traveling. Okay. So I pull into the parking ramp, Silver, get all the way up to the top, park my car.
Yeah.
I get out and I can feel like something doesn't feel
God.
right.
Oh, no.
I feel like I forgot something.
Oh no!
But I can't figure out like.
Oh,
I'm like,
I think
okay,
I know.
I don't think I did. So I do the thing. I like get my keys, and I was very, very, very careful to make sure I had my passport. If that's what you're thinking, I had my passport. I had all that other stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Credit
All right.
cards, keys, all that
That's
stuff.
what I
I'm
was thinking.
golden.
All
I'm
right.
good.
All
I'm
right.
like I think I did this. I think I'm good. I'm a 62-year-old woman. I have traveled many, many times.
Did you forget your luggage?
Yes.
You don't. Nobody forgets their luggage.
My entire luggage gone.
No,
not
people
in the
forget
back seat, not in the
passports
back,
and
not
tickets,
beside me.
Wallets. Nobody forgets their luggage. You're like the Lucy Show. You are Lucia Ball.
I don't. I exhaust myself.
So,
and I just look at I look and I'm thinking, well, should I just go? And I'm like, how do you go somewhere for 5 days with no clothes?
You
makeup.
Get there and...
I can't buy 5 days worth of clothes and a graduation outfit. I was like, I can't.
Did you go home?
I had to.
Oh, you were so...
I was like, why? Why am I like this? Why? I'm a semi-bright person. Why can't I get my act together?
At that point, you're at the top of the parking ramp.
Yep.
How many hours away are you from Wheels Up?
At that point, I'm like 2 hours. So to go back to Stillwater and then come, there's no way. Absolutely. On an international flight, no way.
What did you do?
I sat in the parking ramp and tried to rebook my flight, which I did.
Oh.
But here's the difference. Instead of being on a flight that took 3.5 hours direct, all that was left was a flight that was 9 hours that was indirect.
9 hours?
I stopped in Edmonton for a long time.
Wow.
But I went home and got my luggage, so that was good.
Wow.
Anyway, that's my life.
How did that affect your did you have a hotel reservation?
Well, my brother and sister were already there, and they had a VRBO. So
all right.
I texted them and sort of told them, but I didn't want to tell them what I did until I got there. So I just said there was a complication. And then I got there, and then they were like, what'd you do? Forget your passport? Forget your suitcase? I'm like, yeah, I forgot my suitcase.
So they totally know.
They know me.
Not surprised
but
all.
I don't get it. You know what? I'm done. I don't understand.
You need a handler.
I need brain surgery.
You need a person.
Surgery.
No, a personal assistant. You need somebody to hold your hand and tell you where to go next and how to act. And you should smile now. We're in public.
I'm sweating now, just thinking about getting out of my car, looking in my car, and going, "There's no suitcase in here." And then contemplating how you do a 5-day trip with no clothes, no makeup, no nothing.
I would have just bought everything.
You would have worn that the whole time.
Yeah, I would.
Carhartt, you would have worn that the whole time.
Bought 2 T-shirts and 1 pair of pants.
No, girls' lives are more complicated, I think. So anyway, that's my life.
Do you see who's sitting across from you?
Yeah. I've noticed. She's my boss.
My first question, and I'll just ask it now: why did you agree to this? But
Jenny?
Yeah, Jenny. But let's take a break. Let's come back, and then we're going to talk to Ginny Hubbard. We have a big event coming up for us motorcycle lovers. It's the 2nd annual Minnesota Garage Build Bike Show powered by Dennis Kirk, and it's happening at Running Aces Casino coming up Saturday, June 7th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you have a bike that you'd like to show, here's the deal. Be sure to get there before 10 a.m. because bikes start registering at 10 a.m. and then the show runs right around noon to 3:45 or so with judging and awards starting at 5 o'clock. The best part is it's absolutely free to register your bike and to attend, so don't worry about that. Now, this one is open to all you garage builders, you folks that have been working hard on your ride in the garage to transform it into, I don't know, whatever your passion is, a bobber, an old school chopper, maybe a street legal dirt tracker. I really love the Naked Gold Wings with dirt bike tires. I don't know what you like. Whatever you're into, this is your opportunity to show it off and all the hard work you've been doing. There's going to be vendor booths, food trucks. We've got a live DJ scheduled, tons of amazing home-built bikes to check out. It's a family event, so everyone is welcome. Kids, too. There's over 15 different class awards to be handed out, each winner getting a DK gift card, among other cool prizes. It's the Minnesota Garage Build Bike Show. It's Saturday, June 7th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Running Aces Track and Casino in the Columbia Forest Lake area. And as always, for all your motorcycle needs, head to DennisKirk.com. Jenny, why would you agree to this? What is wrong with you? You know better.
That's a really good question, Kenny.
Are you nervous? You think I'm going to give you you think I'm going to do something radical and rash?
Well, you are Kenny Soulman Olson.
Well, okay. I'm going to give you the same respect that I give all the guests.
So much respect that you came to the studio today.
Oh, here we go. We're going to start with this.
I don't think she's just letting that go. No, I don't blame her.
I am in a studio. It's just not there. I always ask our guests the same couple of questions. And the first question to all the guests is, how old were you the first time you were arrested?
I've never been arrested, Kenny.
Have you ever sat in the back of a police car?
Never.
Okay, we're off to a good start.
How about you?
I've sat in the back of police cars. I've never been to jail, county, or anything. I've never been charged.
Yeah, why were you in the back?
Cuffs?
For my own protection. No cuffs. No cuffs. Never any cuffs. Another question, and this is something that really drives me crazy, and I'm wondering if it does to you too. What is your favorite untrue story about HBI or your family? Something you've heard that's absolutely absurd, but it's so absurd that you love it. Anything?
Well, I hear them a lot.
Yeah.
But my favorite, and I've had no warning for this, but my favorite is a story that emanated from my grandfather, who was very involved with the Como Zoological Society and its development. And when I was a kid, I always heard a story that the Zoological Society had raised enough money to buy giraffes, and that the giraffes were taken out by a low bridge on their way to Minnesota.
I've heard that story. True or not?
Not true.
Not true.
Not true.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's the kind of story that all good grandpas tell their grandkids.
Yeah, where did you hear it from?
From my
your
dad.
Oh, you did.
Who heard it from his dad.
Oh, God.
And then, I grow up, I work here. The company or the foundation was helping the zoo with the purchase of a new giraffe. So in preparation for a press release or, how we do this, I go to research the story.
Yeah.
And digging through my grandfather's files. And it turns out that that's not what happened at all.
So you thought the whole time?
The whole time.
How old were you?
And so did my dad.
How many days old were you when you found out?
I was probably in my mid-20s.
Oh, my.
Mid-20s. So what had happened is they had raised enough money to buy the giraffes, but they bought the giraffes before they raised enough money to build the structure that would house the giraffes.
Okay.
Oh.
So they boarded the giraffes at a Florida zoo. And through this very gracious letter correspondence, written, typed correspondence between all the various parties, the value of the boarding quickly eclipsed the value of the giraffes. So the giraffes ended up staying in Florida.
Or good.
Yeah, so...
Those giraffes were adorable. No, not so much.
Yeah. So,
That's
amazing that it lasted that long in your
amazing.
mind. Yeah.
But
well,
brings...
no, my dad...
But they wanted it to stay that way with you.
I don't know that my dad really knew the truth until I told him the truth. And I showed him the documentation to prove it. I don't know. And other people that were around at the time, Ralph Dolan and, other people. Anyway, that's my favorite.
That brings up a good question, though. How do you transport giraffes?
I don't really know.
You can't put them on a plane, can you?
No.
No.
You
But
can't
they'd probably,
fold
if you
them.
did, they'd have their luggage. No, I've always envisioned,
Nice call back.
some kind of a truck. I don't know, with high sides.
Yeah, with their
I
heads
don't know.
sticking out
Yeah,
like
I
a
don't know.
cartoon.
I don't know how you do it.
I'm glad you brought up your grandpa. When I first started, he was still alive, and all the old timers, like, remember Norm Patznick, our
Oh,
engineer?
sure.
They all referred to him as the old man, but they all had these crazy fun stories about him, and that he was, obviously he was one of us. He was a nut like the people he was in control of. And one of the favorite stories I have about him, and I don't know if I should, I'm going to indulge it whether you like it or not, came from you.
Uh-oh.
And when you moved upstairs, you had his office renovated. And his office has a back door. And if I remember the story you told me, he would hear somebody out in the lobby of his office that he didn't want to talk to. And he would sneak out the back door and go down the steps and mingle with the staff. Is that true?
It's true that there's a back door. I am in his office. I don't know how he used the escape hatch, but I know he used it. And I think it would be, he would want to sneak in and he'd want to sneak out.
Yeah.
But he never really shared with me exactly how he used that secret passage.
It would have been even better if you would have said he had a fireman's pole and he just slid down the pole down to the main floor.
Well, now I've got something to work on for myself.
Jenny, have you ever thought, I'm sorry, Kenny, but have you ever thought about, I was thinking about this morning in preparation of talking with you. You were born to this family with this heritage and this legacy in media. You're born into it. And had you not been, have you ever contemplated what you would have done otherwise? Do you have other passions you would have pursued had this not been such a big, amazing, heritage that came sort of with you?
Well, I don't know because I've been here since I was 19.
Right.
Now, in high school, I was a waitress and a hostess, worked in restaurants. My plan between freshman and sophomore year in college was to get a better waitressing job. And my dad said, why don't you just try it for a summer, and if you don't like it, I'll stop bugging you. Because unlike my older siblings, in high school, and I resisted coming in. And but once I got here, kind of never left. It's pretty cool.
Why did you resist, do you think?
I don't know.
Just everybody else was doing it.
Here. Yeah, wanted to do something different. And kind of, yeah.
What did you love? What did you fall in love with?
I fell in love with, and I started working in the TV promotion department. I love the engagement with the community.
My sister worked with you for a while.
That's right.
Yeah, she worked with you. I remember her talking to me about sitting in Jenny's office eating lunch.
Oh, there you go.
Right?
Yeah. The best part of this place is the cafeteria.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing my sister told me was that she had taken that internship right out of college. And like most of us, she was very poor. And she saw, many years later, she saw your dad somewhere. I don't remember where it was. And she made a point to walk up to him and introduce herself with no expectation he would remember her. That wasn't the point. She walked up to him and said, I just want to thank you for insisting on paying interns. Because when she was working here, that was literally her income for a period of time.
Same here.
Yeah.
I started as a paid intern.
Yeah. And he was, of course, as your dad is, like gracious and, how are you doing now? And I'm so glad to hear about it. But she was very grateful.
Oh, and he was always very insistent. Yeah. And over the years, I can remember being a party to many conversations where various managers would say, we can't afford it. And he'd say, yes, we can and we will.
I love that.
So, yeah.
What position did your dad fire you from? I know he fired you.
I was the promotion director of the television station for a great many years, working on marketing, primarily the news program and Good Company. No real experience, kind of worked through that department and then begged for an opportunity to fill that chair when somebody left. And he begrudgingly agreed, but he did. And I did it for 5, 6, 7 years, something like that.
That's a run.
It was a run.
It's also a rough job.
It's a very rough job.
I feel like it's one of the toughest jobs in the building.
It was a tough job, and I learned a lot. And, you know, it was all about moving the ratings, and the ratings weren't moving. And so we know it had to be the marketing.
Of course. It's always the marketing. It's never the product.
Do you think it was harder for him or was it harder for you?
Oh, I think he would not acknowledge, to this day, he wouldn't acknowledge that he removed me from a job or fired me from a job.
Good.
He thinks of it as promoting me. So,
Well, I want to get to that.
but
promotion.
it was a rough time for me because everybody in the building knew what had happened except for him. So,
you know what? I didn't think about that.
yeah.
Oh.
So anyway,
Well,
I
you know
can't
what?
complain. I still had a paycheck.
Promoted to where then?
Oh, vice president of public affairs and
Okay.
marketing or
Doing
something. I don't know.
PSAs. Yeah.
Well, that came earlier. No.
All right, I want to get to Maplewood, but we're going to take one break here. We'll be right back. So, Jenny, what year did you show up in Maplewood? Refresh my memory. I was there, but I can't even pick the year. I don't know.
I don't really know the year either.
90?
It's
91?
90 sounds about right.
Yeah.
My daughter was born in 92, so I would say 89, 90,
Yeah.
something like that.
And you were living up in the area.
I was in Gem Lake.
Gem Lake.
Yeah.
How did that? Because before you showed up, we were a bunch of pirates, and we didn't have the
We
sails
still
up.
are a bunch
We're
of pirates.
We were just floating aimlessly. We had no goal in mind. We weren't doing any plundering. We certainly weren't making any money. And how did you end up taking that job, and why?
Well, after having been removed or promoted or fired or whatever I was, then I languished a bit in this community affairs area and did a lot of community engagement stuff. I was on the board of the Winter Carnival, did different things
Sounds
like
like
that.
fun.
And at one point my dad said, "How would you like to go out to Maplewood?" And I said, "Well, they're a bunch of pirates. Why would I go to
Why
Maplewood?"
would I do that?
Yeah.
I was like, well, he really doesn't like me, does he?
I guess we're done.
And no, seriously, I had a conversation with my brother, and he said, "Are you kidding? It's an opportunity to really, rebuild a business."
Yeah, because
That
we were.
was the legacy operation of.
Yeah, legendary
Yeah,
call
right.
sign. I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
right?
And seriously, we were an awful, awful radio station.
It
And,
wasn't an awful radio station. It just didn't have any focus.
Yeah, any direction.
Yeah.
And you gave us direction, and you gave us, it was a lot of fun because basically, I'll call it now what we called it off the air then. We were blowing out the blue hairs. We were trying to get rid of the old people, getting a younger, hip, fun generation, people that would spend money, people that have money in their
Right,
pocket
right,
that
right.
would respond to the advertising, et cetera, et cetera. And that was a lot of fun.
It was
Because
a lot of fun. It was the most fun I've ever had.
and we did some controversial, naughty things. I remember saying something really, really horrible and making the newspaper and going into your office at the time and apologizing, and you telling me, "Nah, don't worry about it. Don't do it again, but don't worry about it."
What did you say? I don't remember that.
Barbara had on an ex-prostitute to talk about the evils of prostitution.
Oh, gosh. I remember that woman.
This lady got mad at Barbara right away before the first
What
break.
was her name?
Evelyn Goby? She stormed out of the building, walked right past my office. I was sitting at my desk. Barbara calls me in on the air to say, what did she say when she walked by? And she didn't say anything, so I just said, and I'll apologize now, too, in advance. I just said, "I don't know, Barbara. I think she just needs to get laid." And that was not the thing you say.
That made the paper?
Lori Peterson, a lawyer, wrote a letter to the editor, and Doug Groh wrote a whole column about it.
Gosh, it must have been slow news time.
Yeah.
Or
And to
it was,
make
in fact, September of 1990s when you came back.
Oh, okay.
Or when you went to Maplewood.
Got
So
it.
early 90s, yeah.
Yeah.
Quaint.
And to make it worse, Royce had a party at his house a few weeks later, and Doug Grohl was there. And I had to deal with Doug Grohl. But it was a lot of nonsense like that, and we got in trouble, and we made the headlines. And finally, you came up with, you took what we had, got rid of the chaff, and put on a pretty good lineup there. And 1,500, you really, really grew it.
Who was that lineup, you guys?
Well, it evolved. There were, excuse me, there were a number of different players that kind of came and went, but
The
at
staple
various
was
times,
Rush.
Rush was the cornerstone. He was the center.
Yeah.
And I think when I got there, we had an auction show. We had a little
We
of
did.
this, a little of that.
Kind
Yeah.
of typical AM.
Yeah, right. So we had Barbara, kind of early middays.
Was that
We
with the
had
boys
Kate.
yet? Or
the boys
no,
came later.
came later.
That was before the boys. It was
Obviously,
9 to
Bob
noon, I think.
Bob and Kenny were in mornings
Okay.
Yeah.
when I got there.
Yeah.
Bob
And then you
Hicks.
put us on both.
That's right. Forgot about that.
But then you found Turi Ryder.
Turi Ryder.
I know
And
Turi.
that
She
was a bold and dangerous and fun move because Turi really shook up the Twin Cities.
Oh, God,
she
yeah.
sure did.
Yeah, the Twin Cities were not ready for her, and it was
sure
it was
did.
perfect for us.
It was. It
Yeah.
was really,
Yeah, it was
really,
great.
really good.
There were even people on the staff that didn't like her, which made it even more fun. But Turi had balls, man. She was ready to work and play hard.
Yep, she was. We're still in touch every once in a while.
Yeah, and I do
And then
want to.
Don Vogel.
Oh, right. The second edition of Don Vogel, you convinced him to come from Milwaukee or Chicago, one or the other.
I think Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And then when you and Bob left, then came Jesse.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then Jason Lewis in there.
And eventually, why did you move down to university? What led up to moving the station from Maplewood to corporate, as we used to call it?
I think we just wanted everything full, kind of
In one place.
in one place. And I was taking over the responsibility for KS95 at the time.
Oh,
So we're kind of right about that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it made, that I loved the swamp. It was great, but we had kind of outgrown it. And,
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't, there were too many mice to,
I remember that building just vaguely. I was only there once or twice.
we were adding salespeople and we outgrew that place long before we left.
I remember.
But can you remember those meetings we'd have in my office, which doubled as the conference room?
I do. I
Oh
do.
my gosh.
Yeah.
With everybody, like a staff meeting?
Like talent meetings.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. It's like a circus.
Yeah. People standing up and fighting and arguing.
And Jesse, well, you weren't there. Jesse
yeah.
would rock. Barbara Carlson had her gastric bypass. She would,
God, yeah.
but she liked the taste of the food, so she'd put it in her mouth and spit it in a cup.
Oh, I remember that.
Awful.
A really good friend of mine, is Mark O'Connell.
Sure.
Who worked with Barbara for several years. And every day, he would call me every day after the show and tell me what the latest, she fell down, she laid on the couch, didn't want to do the show that day. One day she was hiding in the garage of her condo because she thought her husband was cheating on her, and he was. And then she caught him. I mean, the stories I would hear, I couldn't wait for the phone to ring.
Lots
It was
of
just
stories.
something new every day.
Lots and lots of stories.
And then I came back to the station. I think it was in 2002, maybe 2 or 3, right around there. And I remember Joe O'Brien. He told me later he was the program director, and I think he was also running My Talk. He was doing a lot.
Joe O'Brien?
I don't think he
He
might
was
have been
never involved in My
no.
Talk.
No?
No.
Well, I was hired.
Todd Fisher was
Todd
involved
Fisher,
in
yeah.
My Talk.
I was hired. I was interviewed by Joe O'Brien to be a board op on AM and My Talk. And he told me later that people said, you better ask Ginny if he can come back. And you said yes.
Yes.
So thank you for that. I don't know if I've ever thanked you for that.
Where had you gone, Kenny?
Into the real world. I went to the Fan for a year, and I realized that I was under the guy I was working with was a bad influence on me.
Mm-hmm. Was that
and
with Yates?
Yeah, and I got really, really mad at the business and at myself for allowing myself to do that. And I decided that the real world was where I wanted to be. Well, the real world is petty. and stupid, and they all hate each other, and there's backstabbing and arguing, and there's just no fun at all.
It's kind of boring.
It is.
Yeah.
And
But what did you do, Kenny?
digital imaging.
What does that mean?
Making posters and signs.
Okay.
And I was working overnight and discovered Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew.
Oh, wow.
And Adam Carolla made radio sound like the funnest thing in the whole wide world. I'm like, my God, I need to be doing that.
Where did you listen to them?
Whatever radio station they were on.
I feel
It
like
was at
Cities
night.
97 ran them for a while at
Yeah,
night.
something like that.
If I'm not wrong, I could be wrong.
Because there was no internet, right? You weren't
this was
streaming
before.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, somebody broadcast them.
Yeah. And you put 107 on the air, and I heard that Kevin Berger was working there. And Berger,
Bob's wife.
Yeah, Bob's ex-wife at that point, maybe.
Right, I think so.
And she told a story about the night that all of us went to see Frank Sinatra at the Met Center, and I was there. So I sent her an email and said, hey, I remember that. That was fun. And she responded by, you need to come down here and go to work. We need help really bad. So on my way to the interview, I got a call from my manager where I was working telling me that I was being laid off due to lack of work. And I was like, nah, that's all right. I'm going to get this radio job. And I did.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Confident.
I did. Yeah. But I knew when I got back into radio that I wanted a position where I wouldn't end up getting fired. Namely, I didn't want to be a host. I didn't want to be a co-host. And I stumbled into traffic kind of by accident. And that's kind of how I got back into the business.
Brilliantly so, too, I might add.
Lighting my hair on fire, I did that because I realized that nobody listens to traffic. And it's boring and nobody pays attention to it. And it's repetitive and it's just droning. And I thought, well, the only way to get people to pay attention is to be a ridiculous fool. And it seemed to work.
I think it worked great.
I think it worked beautifully, Ken.
Yeah, I turned it into fun. The funnest times for me, though, at 1500 was when you were in the office there, Ginny, with the big glass window right next to my window. Oh, my God, that was so fun having you because, first of all, Todd Fisher, about 4 p.m, would come down the hall and he'd peek over all the partitions to see if you were there. And if you were there, he'd go back to his office and look busy. And if you were gone, he would leave. That cracked me up every single day. We called him Hey Man. He was a great guy. He was fun to work with. Yeah, but we called him Hey Man. And then you sitting in that office with your door closed, and you always sat in the chair.
We're here now, right?
Yeah.
We're here on University Avenue.
And you're in that office that Dan is in now, and you're facing the glass window while all these suits, I don't know if they're bean counters or who the hell they are, but they all need meetings all day, every day. And you'd sit there and I would walk by and make faces at you and try to get you to crack up in the middle of one of these dumb meetings. And the big idea I had, and I never pulled it off, I didn't have the balls, but I told everybody about it, was I was going to open the door during one of those meetings, run to your private bathroom, slam the door, and then just sit in there for 10 minutes and then come out and say, you can do not go in there and leave. And I never did have the courage to do that.
You've often threatened when Dan is in there and he's in his office, but we don't see him, so we assume he's in his bathroom.
Yeah.
The wall of the bathroom is right next to the coffee area.
Yeah.
And you've often threatened that you're just going to stand there and kick the wall while he's in there.
Do you remember me smacking the wall when you were in the bathroom, Jenny?
I don't.
That office that I sat in, the end of your bathroom wall
That's right.
came up against my office. So I would just have to reach up and just bam, bam, bam. And then 3 minutes later, I'd hear bam, bam, bam. You were pounding right back. But that was a lot of fun having you there. And then you moved upstairs and we never saw you again.
Yeah, there you go. Here I am and you are not.
Yeah.
We have more questions. Let's take a little break, Ken, then we'll come back.
AM 1500, the talk station. We have Mildred on her car phone. Go ahead, Mildred.
Get out of my way, you foreign tin can!
Mildred?
I heard you're rearranging your whole schedule to make room for this big, fat, round mound of sound guy.
Oh, you mean Don Vogel.
That's the one.
Yeah, Don's going to be joining our lineup. We're going to have to rearrange just a little bit to help fit him in.
Well, I don't like change. The last time I went through change, I grew a mustache. Had to take lots of estrogen. And it's not fair what you're doing. Just because Barbara Carlson had her stomach stapled to make herself thinner doesn't mean you have to make her show thinner, for crying out loud.
Mildred, you're such a bitch. Hey, if you just listen to us, give us a little bit more of a chance. You'll find that we'll fit right into your schedule.
And what about Tori Ryder? You're going to make her show late. I bet she doesn't like being late. I bet it scared the heck out of her boyfriend when she come home and said, honey, I'm late.
We hope you like our new schedule change.
Ben.
But if you don't,
Ben,
too bad.
oh,
Ben.
AM 1500, the talk station.
What a voice. Wow.
Ben,
voice.
he went on to big
Yeah.
things.
He did, and he came to us through Tori. Tori found him.
He's
Really?
amazing.
Yeah. So we moved down to university, the collective we. I'm sorry, I always refer to anything you own as ours or we or me. Like when
I like
people say,
it, yeah.
I was listening to that station up in Brainerd. Oh, that's one of ours. Like, you know, like my name is on the masthead. So you had 1500, My Talk, and KS95. What led to, and how was your confidence level when you decided to buy that first cluster of, I think, 17 radio stations? Did you know you were going to succeed, or did you think, this is dangerous?
Well, it was an opportunity to buy stations from Bonneville, which is owned by the Mormon Church.
Yeah.
And they were wanting to divest themselves of a certain number of radio stations. But because it was the Mormon Church, they wanted to be very picky about who they sold to. They didn't
Yeah.
want to sell to a public company. Level of confidence that it would succeed, I'd say, was very high.
Oh,
It was very high.
And what was
It
that?
was scary, but it was very high. They were all highly successful, highly rated, highly profitable radio stations. So we bought Cincinnati, St. Louis, Washington, D.C., and Chicago.
Well, and to give perspective for those who don't know what a change that was, you went from, because I really remember I was here for several years. Obviously, Kenny, you way predate me, that it was 2 stations for the longest time and then 3.
Yeah, half a cluster.
You know, half a cluster here. So you had My Talk, you had 1500, you had KS95. You went from that to approximately 20, correct?
Sounds about right.
Did just the logistics of that stagger you a bit?
A little bit, but they were all really well run.
Okay.
And so, you know, it wasn't so daunting. You know.
They weren't dumping them in your lap and
No,
going,
and
go.
they were all-
Obviously, they had management.
And they were all successful, and they were all doing well,
Right.
for sure.
Then later, and I don't know how much later,
2 years.
you got the up north stations.
Oh, that was kind of in the same realm.
Okay.
Up north, 3-4 years later. But
Okay.
also then Sandusky brought in Phoenix and Seattle.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
So then also just for those who don't know, we own
yeah.
Brainerd,
us.
but we do. Brainerd, Bemidji, Alexandria, Wadena, correct?
Correct.
And lots of stations, 16, I think,
15, I think.
15.
So how many total? Is it 54 or is it now over 60?
I think we're 52.
52.
Yeah, there may be more frequencies than that, but there are some simulcasts in Washington, D.C. and some other places. But 52 brands, really.
Speaking of DC and Wadena, my 2 favorite radio stations, WTOP, because I am a traffic and a news radio nerd. I love, love, love news radio. And I also love hillbilly backwoods population 1000 AM radio,
Absolutely.
because they both serve their listeners in totally different ways, but absolutely amazing ways where they can really bring a city, a community, a small town together. And you can't compare the two, but they both do the same thing in my eyes.
I agree. They both serve their communities.
So,
Sure.
and with TOP, it's the number 1 station in DC, isn't it?
It is.
And it's a big earner. Is it just because it's DC? Could you, my way of thinking is you couldn't make that happen in Cincinnati, Minneapolis, Kansas City, or anywhere else.
No, I think it is because it's DC.
Yeah.
And because there are lots of decision makers in DC.
Yeah.
And advertisers want to reach them.
Yeah.
And so there's WTOP and there's WFED, which is programming that is directed toward federal employees.
Tell Amy the frequency of WFED.
1,500.
It's a 50,000
Really?
on
50,000 watt, 1,500.
on 1,500.
Just happens to be on the other coast for a reason, correct?
Yeah.
The
When you
first time
say-
I met Joel was when we were trying to figure out there had been a long-standing Standard Temporary Authority, STA, allowing us to go throw more power to the east. There was another 1,500 in Detroit.
Yeah.
And we were trying to go from temporary authority to permanent authority. And that's when I first met Joel, because it was a kind of a triangulated negotiation. We didn't like living with the fact that it was temporary and could be yanked at any moment.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Joel Oxley is the
manager.
manager of that market and that station.
Yeah. It's sort of an interesting coincidence, to be sure.
So I brought up the TOP succeeding elsewhere. Does that hold true for other formats, or can you pretty much be assured that a CHR radio station, contemporary music, is going to be successful anywhere?
There's nothing that's assured in this business,
Anymore.
certainly anymore, for sure.
And what drives the success of said radio station in any given market? Is it the music? Is it the people? What is it?
It's compelling personalities.
It
People
is.
that can develop a relationship with an audience.
I love how you use the word compelling when in fact you mean insane people who can't work elsewhere.
We may over-index down here on insane people. Not everybody that's compelling is insane.
Right.
Yeah.
But often they overlap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they do.
yeah.
They do, for sure.
So now, lately, you heard me talking to Amy earlier about my feud with the internet and how much I hate it. And I acknowledge the fact that my entire existence right now is thanks to the internet. And now you've picked up, or you're involved with something called, am I saying this right? Gamut?
Gamut.
Gamut.
It runs the gamut.
Yeah.
Gamut.
And this has something to do with podcasting.
It does.
Why? There's over 4 million podcasts in the United States alone. Why are you doing this?
Well, because there's a business there. We hired a guy from Chicago named John Goforth. We've got obviously successful podcasts here in the Twin Cities. We've got successful and profitable podcasts in St. Louis. And we've got other things that are working well in the podcast area.
And TOP, don't forget,
And
they've got
TOP,
some,
for
they've
sure,
got good ones.
For sure. But we have always been radio people trying to kind of stumble along and make it work in our own paradigm and stretching. But John is a person that has worked in all different aspects of the business to help kind of rationalize how we monetize what is living off the radio, not only podcast only content like the Krabby Coffee Shop, but also morning shows that then get repurposed as a podcast. So
A lot of that, yeah.
a lot of that. So, and how do you monetize that? How do you sell that? And he's been able to tap into some money we were unaware of earlier, kind of rationalize some contracts that we have with national providers and help us begin to develop some new content that we can own and do well by. But you're right, it's radio, there was always a barrier to entry. There were only going to be so many radio stations in the Twin Cities. Podcasting, it's Katie bar the door.
How do you possibly choose talent?
Well, I haven't chosen a talent for a long time.
But you know what you must understand the process. What these guys have. What do they
Yeah.
base their picks on?
Well-
when the podcast.
Well, don't you think it's the same thing, Jenny?
I think
talents,
it's kind
talents,
of talents. Crazy.
You know,
talents,
crazy,
talents.
insane talent.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, and Kenny, you can too. I mean, you know it when you hear it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's different with podcasting. I do think podcasting is more intimate. And I think radio kind of needs to evolve that way. I think it's very much a one-on-one kind of relationship that radio's always been good at.
Right.
But you guys already have, and when I say you, I mean we, 150 podcasts in that network. You began with that. I mean, we've always had podcasts.
We've always had podcasts,
and
but
now
we haven't
it's
really
just
been
sort
able
of put
to
an umbrella over it
Right.
called Gamut and
Right,
made
and-
a more formal plan.
Yes, and organizing how that inventory is sold and tapping into new pots of money and
Right.
and the way John Goforth lays it out, it can be a good business with a lot of kind of I'm not one to make sports analogies, singles, doubles, triples. You don't need a home run to make it
Right.
work. And to hit a home run, I mean, we've got some home run podcasts here locally, but to hit a home run nationally is a whole different.
It's funny
story.
that you use that analogy because Joe and I use that all the time. We don't have to swing for the fences. Just get base hits. You know, not everything you have to say has to be
Right.
the funniest thing you ever said, not the,
Right.
the question you ask of the person you're interviewing, et cetera, et cetera. Just get base hits. Just forward the conversation along.
Right.
Kind of like that. It seems to me that podcasting relies solely, though, on social media to promote it and to grow it. Am I misinterpreting that?
I'm not sure if you're misinterpreting it. I don't really know. I think hearing about it through other podcasts is probably as
Collaborations.
yeah.
I've really been urging with my stuff collabs with other podcasts, like you said. It's just, you know what I really think it is? And this is such a broad, sort of squishy term, but I really think it's community building wherever that community may happen to be. And these days, it could be a Discord server. It could be a dedicated Facebook page. It could be a dedicated Instagram page. It could be any number of places where you're building a community. It could be, by the way, YouTube. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your answer, Ginny, but YouTube is the number one platform for podcasts. The number one by bigger than Apple, bigger than Spotify, by a long shot.
I hate that so much.
I know,
by the way.
but
Just hate that.
in the comments of YouTube, when you put up a podcast video, there's like a whole community there. We have a podcast called Blended by the Item under my talk that has built a lot of its community through the comments on YouTube.
But as you say that, Amy, there was just a story in the trades today. AM/FM tops TikTok, YouTube, and podcast fan conversion. A new study reveals that the radio audience doesn't just overlap with podcast listeners. It often outperforms other platforms entirely, making AM/FM one of podcasting's most engaged and loyal pipelines
I love that.
for fan growth. So,
It's community building.
community building.
It's a sort of like what your grandfather and your father and the kids, meaning you and the grandkids, have always stressed from the beginning is community building. And you go back upstairs to the legal office, there's the
Sure.
original, I think, mission statement from your
Right.
family. And it basically boils down, again, to everything your father's ever talked about, which is community, community, community.
Community. Right.
So where does the future lie for the broadcaster? The kid that's 15.
62.
No, that's 15. Yeah.
You're going to be okay. 5 more years, you're good.
The kid that's 18 and thinks he wants to do a podcast and or radio, what's that person's future? I mean, I knew exactly what to do and how to get into the business, and nobody could change my mind. What does that kid do?
I think there's still ways. I mean, there is no Brown Institute anymore, as we know, but we have a lot of young people in the business. And Amy and I recently met with a young woman, a student at McAllister, who's dying to get in the business and can't see herself doing anything else.
That's what we
Nothing
need.
makes me happier these
I mean,
days.
that you find them and you have them, and it's not that dissimilar to when you were young and in college at McAllister and wanted to get into radio, Kenny.
Yeah, because you look like a McAllister kind of guy.
Yeah. No, I was Brown Institute, actually.
Yeah.
But the thing about me and Brown Institute, Mike Cronfors told me you're going to have to move around the country.
Yeah,
and I
and
said,
you didn't, right?
I said, no, I'm going to work for 1500. And no matter what, I am staying in this market or I'm going to New York City. I am not going to be working in Bemidji or Ames, Iowa, or any of that nonsense.
Yeah, where are you today?
Well, I'm in a very, very small market out in the middle of nowhere, but I'm still an employee of
Yes.
Hubbard Broadcasting,
Yes.
which is all I've ever wanted to be.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here, Kenny.
Oh, it's so fun. I can't, that 1 year that I worked for the Fan, Ginny, was the worst experience of my life. My God, they didn't know what they were doing. It was so frustrating.
Except for like 2 weeks ago, I'm going to tell tales on Kenny.
Yeah.
I talked to him and he was all bummed out, as Kenny is wont to do
Yeah,
occasionally.
it happens to him
Yeah,
sometimes.
and I was like, Kenny, like, what's going on? And he goes, I mean, how old are you? 60?
Old
Just turned
AF.
60.
Yeah.
I just turned 60 and I'm like doing traffic and I'm like doing radio and podcasts. I mean, what am I doing? And I go, well, what do you want to do? Be a doctor? I mean, what's the problem?
Make signs.
Right? I don't get. Yeah, I don't understand what the issue is. You've been doing this for a while. And then he was like, well, I'm not happy with myself. I said, you're never happy with yourself. Move on.
I think I want to do something I haven't done, and I think I want to work overnights at KWAD. Are they full-time 24 hours a day? I don't even know.
Yeah, just talk to Dan Seaman. I think he can give you a nice letter of recommendation.
Dan has
You
been,
still have to get hired.
Jenny, Dan has been wonderful for my career. You and Dan, seriously, you've saved my life.
Did you work for him at KFan?
I did, and the
And
last
he didn't know what he was doing.
I'm not going to blame who's at fault for why KFan was so bad. But on my last day there, I was in a production studio about 9:15, and he says, come with me. We got to go down to Mick's office. And I knew this was coming. And I said, nope, I'm going home. I'm not doing that BS. And he goes, you can't get your last paycheck unless you go down there because you have to do an exit interview. I think we were owned by Disney at that time. And for 45 minutes, Ginny, I stood up and yelled and pointed at Mick. And I've never burned a bridge so badly as the bridge I burned with him.
Wow.
Saying what?
I told him what I thought of his management techniques. I told him what I thought of the radio station, the way they promote it, the talent he has on the air, the producers that he has on the air, the production, everything. I left no stone unturned. Felt good, didn't do me any good.
Oh, that's so.
wow.
I think
You.
Do we have anything else for Jenny? Should we let her go, or do we need to grill her some more?
Well, I want to know. I mean, Kenny, when did you two start working together? Then
It would have been
80s?
90.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was 90.
No, it
When
was September of 91.
It was,
He was
okay.
he was in the swamp when I got there.
Gotcha. Okay, so you guys have been together. How long is that? 36 plus years. 35
Do you remember
plus
the
years.
first time we met? I do, because I don't remember you, and I was told who you were after you left. I was doing a live broadcast from Taste of Minnesota. They put us right next to a loud generator. It was 110 degrees, and we were drinking. And you came up and said hi, and after you left, Bob said that was Ginny Hubbard.
And I was running the AM at that point.
No.
No, I
That
was
was
working
before
for
that.
TV
Promotions?
probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and later on you showed up there. And one of the big mistakes I made early on, you asked for my help in doing some operations stuff. And I said no, because I knew I was going to be a superstar and end up in New York City. And I recommended Steve Conrad and Doug Westerman, and you hired Steve Conrad, who was a friend of ours at the time.
I'm still a friend. He's a great guy.
Wow.
Yeah, and literally the best PD I've ever had, including
Steve's the
you,
best.
including you, Amy.
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah.
Steve's amazing.
Yeah.
Steve was so critical to my early trying to figure out what I was doing in terms of running
Yep.
my talk. He
Yep.
was so generous. He was so kind. He did technical things I didn't know how to do, and he was a lovely, he is a lovely, lovely person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she made a good choice, Jenny.
So we've been together a long time, I guess.
Long time. And I think, Kenny, when I had my first child in 1992, you came to visit me in my house. Do you remember that?
I did. Yeah.
I loaned you
I
$20.
did.
Oh my God!
I wonder what interest is on that now.
I don't know, but
Why did you need $20, and why would you ask Ginny for the $20?
he was leaving. He's like, "Hey, you couldn't maybe like loan me $20, could you?"
Kenny.
I'm sure I did that, and I probably bought a bag of weed or something with it. I have no idea what I did with it.
I guarantee you, if I need money, Ginny, I shall not be coming to you.
Here, I thought he wanted to meet the baby and all that.
No, just needed some cash.
$20.
Your other kid, Wheeler, is one of my favorite human beings on the whole planet. I love that kid so
Wheels.
much. He's
You know,
so awesome.
he's a father now.
Yeah, I
So
know.
amazing. Where is he living now?
Bend, Oregon.
Okay.
Named his baby Ely.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And what
Which
is he
makes
doing in
sense.
Bend?
He is.
It's a
Working-
beautiful outdoors place, right?
Yeah, he's doing a lot of outdoor stuff, but he's applying for jobs to become a commercial pilot.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I love that he was in the business and then he had the balls and the wherewithal to say, nope,
I
I want to do something else,
Nope.
something that makes me happy.
Yep.
And that's exactly what he's doing. It's so cool.
But
It is
you've
cool.
always encouraged that with your kids.
totally.
I remember early on, one of the Raminskys, Rob, worked with me in production, who I love Rob Raminsky so much. I love the whole family. Rob, Katie, Mike. But I remember talking to you very briefly in your office, and you were like, how's Rob doing? And I said, he's amazing, because he is amazing. He's such a great guy. And you were like, you know, I wonder, do you have any idea? Like, what has he said? What does he want to do? I have no idea. And you said something about really encouraging all the kids to try something else before they settle on, so to speak, broadcasting. And he became an attorney.
Lawyer, right.
And other kids have done other things. I think it's great.
Yeah, it is great.
Rob, our nickname for John Haidt is FYI, and that came from Rob.
Raminsky?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh my God, Rob is so awesome. I'm in the production room doing some dumb production, and I'm doing it the long way where it takes about 3 minutes to do it. And Rob goes, FYI, if you do it this way, boom, 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 you can do it in 10 seconds. And I just started cracking up because
FYI.
here's a guy that's been at this forever, and this kid comes in and immediately shows me there's an easier way of doing it.
That's
and,
great.
And that immediately transferred to John Haidt, because John Haidt is always saying, hey, by the way, you didn't quite get that right. And so that's where that nickname came from.
Rob
from Rob.
Raminsky actually helped me completely re-image my talk twice, I believe. And he would stay. I mean, it takes hours and hours, and you have to stay for like a couple days to get all the things in. And I remember at one point, I don't know why this sticks out to me, but I said, Rob, I'm starving. We've been here for like 15 hours. I'm going to get a pizza. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't eat cheese. I was like, who doesn't eat cheese? Get out of this state.
Next time I see Rob, I'm going to ask to borrow $20 from him.
Yeah, right.
He orders pizzas without cheese.
That's so weird.
very
I was like,
weird.
you're a strange man, but I love
Very
you.
weird.
Thanks for being with us, John. Jenny, it was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Kyle.
Come, thanks
All
for being
right.
with us.